proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and it is Fake News Friday, which means we've got another full studio. So we've got Bob Savage and Kevin Wilson here, and we've got a lot going on today.
Blast, I forgot to do my homework.
Yeah.
I'm going to get busy over here.
Yes. I was just going to be on his phone the whole time looking up.
Well, you know, what I try to do is when I go to sleep at night, the night before, I put the book of all the Iranian and U.S. Foreign policy under my pillow and just hope it kind of like absorbs it.
Yeah, there you go. Just absorb it through osmosis.
Yeah, absolutely. So today's Fake News Friday, which means at the end of the show, we're going to have some news article headlines for you guys, and you guys will get the opportunity to try to figure out, is it fake news or not? But before we talk about that, we're going to talk about Iran, because it seems to be worth talking about at the very least. And normally we would reserve national politics for like a White House Wednesday. But this is kind of international relations. You know, it's certainly worth talking about. And of course, you know me, I like to give people a little bit of history on what's going on. So to kind of primer the discussion, I want to just tell you guys a little bit about U.S. history and U.S. relations with Iran, because if you're like me, I wasn't involved in politics like a long time ago, and I wasn't paying attention to this stuff. You know, the most important thing for me was maybe passing a test, growing my business, and, you know, everything else was an afterthought until boom, all this stuff hit me, started with the SAFE Act. So I wasn't paying attention to Iran U.S. policy, and even as the years have gone by, I've been focused mostly on home. You know, I've been focused on New York State, Monroe County, you know, Western New York, and foreign policy stuff is always kind of there floating around, but I didn't spend a lot of time going into a deep dive. So you might maybe be in the same situation. So I'll give you guys a brief summary, and then there will definitely be a lot to talk about, because Congress is trying to pass bills and resolutions to limit the president's power, and some people probably don't understand what that means. Does it hold any force? Is it going to go to Supreme Court? There's just a ton to talk about. But first, foremost, Iran, U.S. relations. We've basically had violence going back and forth for literally decades, going all the way back to 1953. I mean, 1953, the CIA and British intelligence agencies worked together to orchestrate a coup to get rid of Prime Minister Mohammed Mossadegh, I think is how you pronounce his name.
Mossadegh.
Mm-hmm. And so that was that was the beginning, if you will, or at least that's where we're starting. I'm sure there was stuff before then, but, you know, that's kind of where things kicked off. Fast forward 1979, you have the Iranian Revolution, where the U.S.-backed Shah of Iran, he gets forced to leave the country on January 16th after strikes, demonstrations, opposition by all sorts of people. He essentially gets, you know, ousted, and we kind of lose our grip a little bit on Iran. Then in 79 to 81, you've got the Iranian hostage crisis, where the U.S. embassy in Tehran gets seized by protesters, and we had hostages held for 444 days there. After that, 52 of the hostages are freed on the day of President Ronald Reagan's inauguration. And that's just kind of the beginning. Then, and there's stuff in between there too. There's like constant spats with Iran, all the way through to, this last year, 2019, and obviously this year too. In 2019, in April, the U.S. designates the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization, which operates in Iran. So to them, I think that's probably a pretty big slap in the face.
Yeah, so I mean that's an official state entity, so it's a little bit different than kind of a disorganized, well, not disorganized, but a non-state group like Al Qaeda.
Yeah. So that would be like, Iran designating the Marine Corps, of the United States as a terrorist organization or something like that. Like, people would be upset about that. That's certainly, something to make people upset. Then in May, we pull out of the nuclear deal, and that, of course, is another issue. And then just now in January, we do the airstrike that kills. Oh man, I am so bad with names. Help me out, guys.
You're talking about
Soleimani.
Soleimani?
Yeah.
Who's the head of the Quds Force, and a major general in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And this guy, so the Quds Force too, they've been active in the region, kind of doing asymmetrical warfare, trying to support groups like Hezbollah. They're supporting anti-U.S. militias in Iraq, things like that, right? So they've had influence in the region. They're active in Yemen. And and Qasem Soleimani is one of the guys who's like leading that. Yeah,
and it's really interesting. They've essentially, what they were doing is building this network that expands outside of the influence of their country, if you will, and building allies to help strengthen their position in their attacks. They're not like national forces, if you will.
Yeah, right. So they're just doing it so they can wage proxy wars, mostly with Saudi Arabia. So those two are fighting in the region and have been for quite a while now, and kind of engage in proxy conflicts with one another by funding different militias and terrorist organizations throughout the region to strengthen their claim to hegemony in the area.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's maybe a little bit of history, just a little bit of background. If you're thinking that, our conflicts with Iran just started, along the lines of when we had the war with Afghanistan, still have the war in Afghanistan. I think it's still.
And there's an interesting history about that too, because Iran was fighting in Afghanistan before the September 11th attacks. So they're kind of fighting some of the same people we were fighting. But I'm going to post a link to a podcast on like Soleimani's history and what he did. He is not a good dude. So I want to be like, we're going to be talking about like this war in Iran. This guy's not a good guy.
No, not at all.
He's a pretty bad fellow.
Isn't it amazing how the media is kind of like they're treating him like Justin Bieber? He's got salt and pepper, eyebrows, and a former bodybuilder and all. What are you talking about? The guy's a monster.
Yeah, I actually watched. I follow most of my elected officials on Facebook, for better or for worse. Sometimes it's very upsetting. And while this was happening, I saw Senator Chuck Schumer makes a post saying he's going live on the floor. I'm like, you know what? Okay, fine. This time I'll watch. So a lot of times I put on and his voice just hurts my head a little bit, but so I don't get much. But I tell you what, he started off and he was like, this guy's a terrible, evil, awful man, and nobody should shed a tear for his death. And I was like, him and the president just agree on something? Yeah. Like,
also, I think most people will say that, and even the people who are, I don't know if I like the respected general type of stuff that a lot of media has been doing, but it's not necessarily untrue either. Like they kind of built him up to be a martyr in Iran because they figured that this was going to happen sooner or later. So then they can rally their political situation domestically around like, look what the U.S. did. Let's focus on that instead of us killing our own protesters in Iran.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, all right, guys. So we are going to take a brief break here. When we come back, we're going to talk more about Iran. We're going to talk about Congress trying to pass legislation to limit the power of the president and why libertarians are anti-war. We'll talk about that and more when we come back on Radio Free New York.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Hi, Bob Savage here for the WYSL station. So times are tight, and you've got to watch every penny. How to get maximum advertising impact without shelling out maximum bucks? Well, there's print media. Of course, there's a reason why it's called the incredible shrinking daily paper. Then there are those penny savers and shoppers, 98% of which hit the recycling bin without ever being opened. And are you really looking for customers who are shopping for used tires and playpens? You could try cable TV, 500 channels, 12 viewers per channel. Or how about hiring some guy in a day-glow orange wig to dance holding up your sign down at the corner? If you want real advertising impact with a quality message for savvy consumers who actually have money to spend, WYSL has a giant 20,000-watt signal and 2 FM channels at 92.1 and 95.5, covering 1.4 million people all over Rochester and the region, literally all the way to Pennsylvania. Get results, save time and money. Call us, get on board, and start growing for 2020. 346-3000 or WYSL1040.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200
Coming back?
2. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, we're back here on Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We've got Bob and Kevin here in studio, and we're talking about Iran. And there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to start it off with Congress trying to limit the power of the president to take actions that could cause war. It's kind of a general statement. It's a little more specific than that. And the thing that I find very interesting about this is people are kind of divided on partisanship on this issue,
as they often are.
As they often are. And you see that with the votes in the House, 224 to 194, almost straight across party lines, with the exception of 3 Republicans crossing over. And
8 Democrats who voted against it too, including one from Central New York, Mike Brindisi. Out there.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
from my home area, Utica, Rome.
So the thing about
Brindisi, that's his name. I'm trying to think of his first name.
So basically, there's a few things in here. They reference the War Powers Act from 1973, which I think Kevin wants to talk about a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you want to start off with that, or?
Yeah. So let's talk about like what the actual resolution was, and also I do want to make a reference to the Constitution. So Article 1, Section 8, Point 10 of the Constitution does say that Congress has the power to declare war. So in theory, under the Constitution, only the Congress is supposed to permit our country to go to war with another country, right? That's how it's supposed to work in theory. Now, in the past, 80 years or so, that hasn't always worked.
Yeah.
Specifically, the reason why the War Powers Resolution started to come about was because presidents were responding to perceived threats without going to Congress first. Mm-hmm. That they would just go and take military action somewhere without ever being held accountable for that action. And presidents contended that they should be able to do that whenever they want because they were the commander-in-chief of the military.
Yeah, so it's kind of this interesting thing of engaging in acts of war without declaring an official war.
Yeah,
is essentially and taking military action that could be perceived as action of war, or maybe should be perceived, but no war is actually declared.
And we haven't actually declared a war since I think World War II was the last war we declared.
No,
because I even think like Korea was considered a police action. Vietnam was considered something similar. We haven't declared war in Afghanistan or Iraq. We had an authorization for use of military force that's been in effect since 2001 and 2003 for Afghanistan and Iraq, which is what the Trump administration is trying to say justifies their actions last week with the killing of Soleimani. Now, let me read the resolution that got passed in the House recently, and it says, pursuant to Section 5C of the War Powers Resolution, Congress hereby directs the President to terminate the use of United States Armed Forces to engage in hostilities in or against Iran or any part of its government or military. And so that's what the statement says. Again, this was passed mostly on party lines, except for kind of your usual libertarian-ish folks, for the most part, Justin Amash, Thomas Massey, and then, surprising ones like Matt Getz, who's not exactly libertarian, but he also supported this resolution.
Yep. Yeah, and one thing I did want to point out a little bit, and it's part of why later in the show I want to talk about kind of the libertarian stance and maybe the path that you would go down as a libertarian when you talk about war, is that the Libertarian Party, or maybe not even the party, but the idea of libertarian principles is starting to be highlighted by mainstream media as they're talking about this issue. And it's because some of the people who have crossed over on this vote, and they'll say, this guy who has a libertarian anti-war streak in him. And the number of times I heard that just driving over here, listening to things, is because if you don't understand libertarianism, you sometimes just think that libertarians are the opposite of you. So Democrats will sit there and just assume that since they don't know or understand what libertarians are, that they must be the alt-right that their parents keep telling them about, and bedtime stories. And
I know conservatives are often shocked when libertarians are not supportive of going to war.
Sure.
Too.
Yep.
And I know it's like that's always been our position. That's always we don't like going to war. We think it's war is the health of the state. We think that war often increases government power. Mm-hmm. It diminishes individual rights, and it wastes a ton of money. So not that we're always against war in every situation. It's more that any war that we should have should serve the best interests of the United States, and often the wars that we pursue don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is the flip side. A lot of conservatives, if they don't hear the Libertarian platform, they hear Libertarian and think, oh, they must be these ultra liberals, this or that, and have no idea that it's like, no, we want small government. We want less taxes. Really, we want no taxes, but we're also realistic about things in life. And we're very constitutionally based. So you kind of get that weird thing where people sometimes need to be reminded or educated on what libertarians really stand for. And peace and non-aggression is probably one of the biggest principles in the libertarian platform.
That's funny though. I got called a Democrat because I was like, Mike Pence is lying when he said that Iran was connected to the 9/11 attackers. Like they really weren't. And I was like, that's not a good justification. Like we shouldn't, if we need to do this attack, that's not a good justification for it. And they're like, oh, you're just a Democrat. And I'm like, what?
Kevin,
no, because I don't think the vice president should lie about our justification for provoking, for killing a state actor in this case that could bring us to war with Iran. No, that's I don't know how to respond to that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we also kind of live in this current day and age, I think, where it's becoming socially acceptable. And I'm not sure what has prompted this, but it's becoming socially acceptable to people to just, if you disagree on something, you must all of a sudden be the total opposite of everything else you believe in.
Yeah.
This concept that you're with me 110% or you're totally against me.
Oh yeah, this is a recurring. Name the issue that you want to discuss. Like for example, if you're against Medicare for all, you hate kids.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah. Basically, it says you hate children. You want them to like die of diseases.
Yeah, but they don't stop there. It could be not only do you hate children, but you like must hate minorities, and you want the earth to catch on fire, and you want like all these other things that have no association
projected onto you.
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't in some quarters, of course, present company accepted, dear listeners, you can't criticize anybody who's a member of a minority group or what I would call a grievance group, because then you hate all people in that category.
Yeah.
The criticizing, by the way, is not hating somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we have the smartest listeners. They know. They're thinking about it critically.
Yep. Listen, if the headphones fit, folks, wear them, okay? All right.
And we had to talk about this because although our listeners are vastly intelligent, we know they're sharing this with their friends and their family to help them also become just as intelligent as they are.
Well, not that they need to, because their friends and family are already as smart as they need to be.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I see this problem on the other side, too. And I see this a lot in the Second Amendment community. And sometimes I'm really embarrassed to admit it. But I'm one of those people that, I'm about transparency. And I think if it's talked about, it'll get better. I see people in the Second Amendment community speak out about things that Trump has said or done that are in direct conflict with the Second Amendment. And then I see other people jump on them and be like, well, that means you hate Trump. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm just saying I disagree with the guy on this one thing.
Exactly what I mean.
And
that's what happens these days.
Yeah.
This is political discourse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and bringing that back to the Iran situation, like when Rand Paul, who's been loyal to a fault, I think, to Trump in a way that frustrates me as a libertarian, when he's like, hey, we don't think that this justification is good for carrying out this attack, and this escalation is dangerous, and Congress should have the power to limit actions of the president in this area. Lindsey Graham told him that he was empowering the enemy.
I saw that. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No. And that I think, fixing this could be what saves the American people in politics. The idea that you can support somebody, you can support an ideology, you can support a party, you can support a person, and you can still disagree on things. And you can have civil disagreement, and it doesn't mean, you're a terrible person or anything like that. You can simply disagree.
Yeah. And with these issues, they're so important, if it were to come to the fact that, like, the nation or the president decides that he does want to pursue a war with Iran, that's again a commitment of billions, possibly trillions of dollars, the lives of American citizens. This is something that Congress should be debating, right? And so you can agree with Trump on many things or disagree with him on other things, and still be able to have a civil, important, and constitutional debate over whether or not that's a commitment we want to make.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is a lot to consider. All right, guys, you're listening to Radio Free New York. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a moment.
The power. WYSL. More powerful FM 92.1, FM 95.5 West, and 1040 AM WYSL Avon Rochester.
Here's the latest forecast from the Newstead NBC Weather Center for today. Have those umbrellas handy. Looks like some rain at times through the morning into the afternoon, but it will turn milder. Temperatures up well into the 40s. For tonight, more showers likely staying in the 40s on Saturday. Rain likely, could be locally heavy in the afternoon. Temperatures will be well up into the 50s on Saturday. I'm Rich Cornelia on WYSL.
This is Dom Genova, owner of Genesee Valley Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Avon, your no-nonsense car dealer. Factory figures showed that Genesee Valley was the number 2 Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer in Rochester in new vehicle sales last month. Number 2. Think of all those guys promising to give you thousands more than your trade is worth, sending you fake keys in the mail, all the hype and the yelling. And we were number 2 in sales in Rochester in our quiet, no-nonsense way. You know why I'm laughing? Genesee Valley Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is not even in Rochester. We're in Avon. Educated consumers simply took the short trip down 390 to exit 10 and got a money-saving, no-nonsense deal from a non-commissioned salesperson and all the factory rebates they deserve. Like the Start Something New rebates we have this month. Take the short trip for a big difference.
Genesee Valley.
Exit 10, Route 390 in Avon.
GeneseeValley.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
It seems anyone can build a website these days using all sorts of free tools and services. But do those websites actually get results? And how do you even measure it? Nothing But Net Solutions knows there's so much more to an online presence today. Websites are just one piece of the puzzle. Search engine optimization, pay-per-click campaigns, email campaigns, social media, mobile readiness, and responsive design, plus analytics are all part of it. Nothing But Net Solutions will affordably simplify the choices for you, providing a wide range of internet development and marketing services, all under one umbrella, customized to each situation. Nothing But Net Solutions will be there with you through every step, concerned about only one thing: results. 14 years in business and counting. That's what they really care about. Visit nbnsolutions.com or call 585-298-9510. That's 585-298-9510.
FM Talk for breaking news.
Right now, a police investigation is underway in this city.
Police are still working to determine exactly what happened here tonight.
For weather where you live.
A nice chance for some sunshine.
For investigative reports.
We're about to show you the most unique crime prevention story we've ever done.
Who's going to know more about breaking into homes than the people who actually did it?
Watch News 10 NBC. It's where WYSL listeners get their news.
This is your home for exciting local college basketball all season long on WYSL. Friday night, the Roberts Wesleyan College Redhawks host Bridgeport in an East Coast Conference doubleheader tipping off at 6. On Saturday afternoon, the University of Rochester Yellow Jackets travel south to take on Emory in their UAA opener. Women's game at 2, the men at 4. Then on Sunday, it's back to Roberts Wesleyan for the Redhawks and Queens College in an ECC twin bill at 2 on your home for the best local college sports coverage in Rochester. WYSL.
Open Door is a great place because it helps you with your whole self. It's not just about the addiction. And I can't think of anywhere else I would want to be to do that. It's safe, it's challenging, but it works.
Go to opendoormission.com.
WYSL. Last spot.
Scope. The Shooters Committee on Political Education at this weekend's Rochester Gun Show at the Dome. Get information or join Scope to protect our Second Amendment. Scope welcomes you to this weekend's Rochester Gun Show.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right. Welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. I have Kevin and Bob here in studio. And where we left off, we're talking about Iran. We're talking about the 1973 War Powers Act. And I know Kevin's got some information on that.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just read some information on the War Powers Resolution, which was passed in 1973. And it says that the U.S. The U.S. Armed Forces can be put into action for either with the approval of Congress or to repel an immediate attack, right? And that it requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing armed forces to military action and forbids armed forces from remaining for more than 60 days with a further 30-day withdrawal period without a congressional authorization for use of military force. Or declaration of war. So this was passed, again, 1973. It was passed over the veto of President Richard Nixon at the time. And it's a lot of presidents have considered it illegitimate. They don't think that it applies to them. And, you know, we see that in the current debate around Iran. We saw that in Yemen when the both houses of Congress passed a resolution condemning the president's actions in Yemen. And we saw that under the Obama administration, too, when the Obama administration enacted what they called a kinetic action in Libya in 2011, which the U.S. Congress wasn't notified about in the appropriate window. The Hillary Clinton said that they didn't need to. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, why would we do that?
Think you changed your mind this time around?
Yeah, probably. You know, just because what matters is whether the red team or the blue team's in the White House, not any principle. Great. So on June 3rd, 2011, U.S. House of Representatives voted to rebuke the Obama administration for committing American armed forces to Libya. And again, the Obama administration said that they were able to do that because they had transferred U.S. forces to NATO control, and then therefore that made things okay somehow.
So loophole.
Yeah, and I'm summarizing a lot of what happened, sure. But the point is that the Obama administration didn't take it seriously, and nothing, you know, they didn't stop their actions in Libya, and now, as we all know, because the Obama administration did that, Libya is a perfect, wonderful, great place where no things are going wrong.
Yeah. Garden spot, almost as good as New Jersey.
Yeah. And something we spoke about over the break, too, is how, you know, this strike, many people in Congress are stepping up and saying, hey, the president can't do that without congressional authorization. But Obama had done many, many strikes during his presidency. And it would be interesting to go back and look at what the people who are saying that today, what they said then, and to compare that, because I bet you it's straight party lines, it's straight party tribalism. Nobody's actually sitting there and saying, these are my principles and I'll abide by them regardless of who's in charge. It's just, oh, he's not on my team today, so today I'll crucify him for the same thing I let go yesterday.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's mostly there's a few standouts, and again, most of them are, libertarians and then a few like principled anti-war Democrats. But it's so few and far between. It's incredibly frustrating to see, because again, President Obama, he had killed an American citizen who was again, he was the media guy for Al Qaeda at the time, but he killed an American citizen in a country that we were not at war at. It wasn't in Iraq or Afghanistan. It was in Yemen.
No trial, no due process.
Yeah, and so and I only bring this up not to have and we brought this up not to have the whataboutism argument to be like, well, the Obama administration did the same thing. We're not saying this is fine.
Yeah.
What we're saying is that this is a bipartisan problem of presidents who don't respect the authority of Congress, who are willing to take military actions and commit the U.S. to further war without consulting, the body that's supposed to represent the will of the people.
Yeah. So I look at this this is it a bill? Technically, it's a resolution, right?
Yeah.
Resolution that passed the House, and to me, it's too specific to care about. Even though it probably has no force, that's besides the point. If they truly cared and if they truly had principles, this would be applied to any president, any situation. If you're going to limit the power of the presidency, which isn't a terrible thing, as long as things remain balanced, right?
Yeah. But Congress doesn't have the authority to do that, though.
Well, and that's just the thing is that's why it really has no force. It's clearly been ignored. I've seen that people are like, okay, well, now that it's serious, maybe the Supreme Court will get involved.
Yeah, Congress hasn't pushed its authority in that area. And with this resolution, it's not even going to the president. It's what's it called, a concurrent resolution, so it could pass in both houses, and it's basically a finger wag at the president, be like, you violated the War Powers Resolution, we're very disappointed in you, but not actually going to do anything about it, because remember, the Democratic-controlled House continued to give the president authority in the National Defense Authorization Act. Yeah, thank you. Brain fart there for a second, but in that they have given him the authority and the resources to be able to conduct these wars with very few checks. Yeah. And again, the President Trump is using an authorization for use of military force that was put in place for Afghanistan and Iraq to attack someone not in Iran, but because he was in Iraq at the time, but to attack an Iranian state official of the Quds Force.
A PR exercise, basically, is what it is. Much like the impeachment, I have to say, because the impeachment this is Nancy Pelosi showing the extreme left that I did it. I impeached the president. See, I did that.
Yep.
And that's why because she doesn't want to perpetuate this embarrassment. That's why she hasn't sent the articles over. Although now I guess she's caving, from what I hear.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, and this isn't a signal to the extreme left because most Americans are sick of war. They don't want us to be committed to another conflict. They've seen how Afghanistan turned out. We had a show on the Afghanistan papers like 3 weeks ago where the American government across multiple administrations has lied to people about the progress in the war and continued to fail our troops and to fail our country, spending trillions of dollars in this conflict that has not made the U.S. any better. So why on earth do we want to get into another one? Yeah. And luckily, I'll say, the recent update on the situation is the Iranians responded by shooting some missiles at bases that had U.S. and Iraqi troops in them. No one was killed.
Yep.
Luckily, thank God. And maybe it ends with that. Maybe that's it. I don't know if it ends with that, but maybe that's it.
And we have a long history, too, of kind of tit for tat attacks, right? Yeah. With Iran. Oh, they bomb something, we bomb something, then, things sell. Then we bomb something, they bomb something, then things sell. So who knows? Right now, nothing appears to be moving forward. It could be changing right now while we're talking about it. We just simply don't know. But the point that I really, really want to drive home is if you support limiting the president's power, fine. But every president, period, not your guy.
Yeah.
Not your gal.
Have some gosh darn principles, guys.
Yeah, just come up with a standard of living, you know, things that you believe in, and stop changing the rules when the person in charge changes. That just drives me crazy. So
nice. And in this specific situation, again, no, the anti-war folks aren't exactly mad that
that guy.
Oh my God, I'm struggling today. That he's dead. Again, he's a bad dude. It's more that this action was taken without consulting Congress when it could have resulted in escalation that committed the U.S. to war.
Yeah, and we've deployed now 4,000 troops. 4,000 sons and daughters going overseas to face we don't know what.
Yeah.
So
and drives me nuts. There's a few like libertarian people who label themselves libertarians who support Trump in part because they thought he would be an anti-war president, and that's fallen apart. He's increased the troop presence in the Middle East. We've spent more money over there. We're still recommitting to the same mistakes over and over again. And that was one of the things that I really hope that President Trump was going to be better about is he's America first, right? This isn't serving America's interests. Why are we over there doing this? Obama said the same thing, too. He was an anti-war candidate and then hugely disappointed once he was there. So was President Bush, actually. When he was running, he was like, we want a softer policy around the world.
Yeah.
9/11 changed that.
Well, the irony of the whole thing is that, at least as far as we're concerned, we don't need the Middle East like we used to.
Yeah.
And now we have record oil production going on in the country. I think it's... I think 5 years ago we were at 8 million barrels. There's a billion. There's a million or a billion. I can't remember which. But anyway, we are now at 12.9. We are from 5 years ago. We're 50% higher. We're not completely energy independent, but we're petroleum independent as far as the Middle East is concerned.
Yeah. From a strategic resource perspective, we don't need to be over there. We're making the situation worse from a political perspective a lot of the times.
Spending a lot of our hard-earned tax dollars that goes into somebody else's pockets. Just saying.
Sure are.
All right, guys, you're listening to Radio Free New York. When you come back, you're going to hear Fake News Friday. We'll be back in a moment on Radio Free New York.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Aircraft Environmental Systems proudly supports Radio Free New York. Rochester-based leaders in climate simulation chambers for America's R&D laboratories. We're experts in troubleshooting, calibrations, custom designs, and consulting for more than 40 years. Industry pioneers, we created the first ever fleet of temperature, humidity, and altitude test chambers available to rent coast to coast. Trained and trusted by environmental chamber manufacturers, we are ACES. Find us at acesinc.com.
Human trafficking is when someone is being forced, tricked, or coerced to engage in a sex trade or forced labor. If you're a kid and forced to sell sex, drugs, or work against your will, that's trafficking. You're not a criminal, and there is help available. Call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 888-373-7888 or text Be Free. Sponsored by the Livingston County Safe Harbors Human Trafficking Task Force.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation.
Coming back.
585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Radio Free New York.
It's Fake News Friday.
Yep, Fake News Friday. Welcome back. This is Radio Free New York. We have hit the part of the show where we read headlines to you guys, and you guys, along with us here in studio, get to try to guess and figure out if it is fake news or not. Kevin is excited for his article. He wants to go first. So, Kevin, what do you got?
Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and read the whole article because it's pretty short. Headline: Democrats call for flags to be flown at half-mast to grieve the death of Soleimani. Washington, D.C. At a press conference held on Capitol Hill Friday morning, Democrat leaders called for the flags to be flown at half-mast to honor the death of Qasem Soleimani. Flags were spotted flying at half-mast around the country, notably at the Washington Post and New York Times, and in front of several celebrities' homes. The celebrities went out and bought an American flag for the first time just to fly it at half-mast for this important time of grief. The grieving process is painful but necessary, said Rep. Ilhan Omar. As a nation, we need to stop and grieve this great, austere, revered religious scholar. He was one of the good ones. In a rare moment of unity with the squad, Pelosi gave each one of the girls a hug, telling them to just let it all out in their time of sadness. Ocasio-Cortez didn't seem to know what was happening, but adjusted her glasses to look smart. A teary-eyed Barack Obama was also seen solemnly lowering the flag in front of his seaside mansion. To think this all could have been prevented with a few pallets of cash. He sighed and stared off into the distance, a look of pain and regret on his face. If only Trump had targeted a U.S. citizen with a drone strike instead. Later, Democrats clarified they meant we should fly the Iranian flag at half-mast, not the offensive and problematic American flag. Is that fake news?
Well, I tell you what, in the beginning, it was almost bad enough that I was like, that might be it. But once you read the whole thing, there might have been a red flag or two in there. I'm going with it. It's fake news.
Well, the tell there is Ilhan Omar is using the language of the Washington Post in referring to this guy as austere, religious scholar, which is the terms that the paper used for the last zealot over there that we whacked. So I say it's fake.
Yeah, no, that's Babylon B again. But what's funny about this is, CNN did a story about how the Babylon B was spreading fake news around this because some people were sharing this as a real article.
Of course.
So people would take a screenshot of the headline and be like, look what Democrats are doing. And
well, you know what gave it away for me? Did they say that the Hollywood people bought a U.S.-made flag? Because I bet you if they went and buy one, it was made in China.
So they bought an American flag for the first time.
Oh, it doesn't say it was made. Okay. All right. I was going to say that would have been the next false flag for me is they probably didn't do that. All right.
Andrew, what you got?
So I've got one here, and that is as of yesterday, which is Thursday, a bill passed in the Senate which says in New York State, if you apply for a driver's license, you will be automatically registered to vote.
Wait, the U.S. Senate or the
New York Senate?
Okay.
New York Senate. Yep.
That's true. That's a real story. Because I believe that legislation also states that if you fill out any state form, you're going to be registered.
Yeah, automatic voter registration pass. I don't know about the specifics of how it's supposed to work, but
So that part is true, but there is a part that's circulating around that is false, and I want to address that, which is we have I think it's the green light bill, which allows immigrants, regardless of whether they've gone through official channels or not, whether they're here legally or not, to apply for driver's licenses in New York State. There's been a lot of news circulating that they would automatically be registered to vote. There's actually a provision in the bill. It's on page 2, line 41, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but it specifically states that if you're ineligible to register to vote or ineligible to pre-register to vote, or if you're not of age or if you're not a citizen of the United States, it will not do that. Right. So if you see an article floating around that says,
Eric, line 1,
are able to register to vote by applying for a driver's license, that is not true. That is fake news. But the Senate did pass the automatic voter registration bill yesterday.
Eric from Angelica.
Oh, sounds like we've got a caller on the line.
Yeah, Eric from Angelica. What's up?
Thanks. If you've already covered this, just go ahead and interrupt me because I didn't get a chance to tune in quite early enough today. But the Vietnam veteran who's waiting for a liver transplant, Dennis Jones, needs our help. He's about to die, and he's pleading for a liver. The hospital at Strong Memorial Cancer Center found him a perfect match. The judge, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney were all on the same page doing the right thing and said, let the transplant happen. The reason the court's involved is because the donor is about to be serving an 11-year prison sentence. He's not in prison yet, and there's no talk of reducing his sentence. They're simply trying to delay the beginning of his 11-year stay in prison till April instead of February so he can donate a liver to the Vietnam veteran, Dennis Jones. So we need to put some very respectful, polite, and professional but firm pressure on Sarah Mangelsford, the president of the University of Rochester, and Stephen Goldstein, the CEO of Strong Memorial Hospital, and ask them, please reverse your decision. We're going to let a guy die who served his country because of the valuable consideration clause in U.S. Title 42, Section 274E. They're claiming the prisoner is making some profit by having his sentence delayed for 2 months so he can save this man's life.
Yeah, we understand, Eric. Appreciate the information. We have now passed that along. Yeah. Sounds like this is probably some kind of a legal wrangle, and the U of R is lawyering up, and they're going to hide behind it. But we appreciate the information, and we wish you well.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's see. Where were we with our fake news? We have a couple minutes left.
Yeah. Do you got one, Bob?
I have one. Okay. Now I know this is going to be a tough call for you because this is a pretty graphic headline, but here we go.
Not sure what to expect now.
Excited park rangers announced Lincoln Memorial actually a girl after statue gives birth to litter of tiny marble Abraham Lincolns.
That one's fake. Wait. Read it again for me.
Yeah, we'll just go into the story here. Admitting that they were, quote, shocked but delighted by the discovery, rangers with the National Park Service announced Thursday the Lincoln Memorial has given birth to a litter of tiny marble Abe Lincolns, definitively demonstrating that the statue is, in fact, actually a girl. We recently noticed the Lincoln had gained significant weight and was occasionally sick in the mornings. And at first we thought something was severely wrong, said Assistant Park Director Benjamin Grove, describing how park rangers had arrived at the memorial to be greeted by the sight of the happy but exhausted statue blissfully nursing a half dozen newborn Lincolns.
So is the question, is it the fact that the statue is a girl is fake news, or that they made the statement fake news? Because that would be great marketing if they actually made that statement.
Well, there's a lot of questions the story poses. I mean, for obvious reasons, it never occurred to us to determine the gender of the monument. I suppose we look rather foolish now, but the whole litter is healthy and happy, and soon we'll be able to adopt them out to other states.
Wow.
The photograph is great.
I'm going with fake news on this one, but I do want to say that could have been a brilliant marketing campaign to get people to go see the memorial.
Yeah. At press time, Abe Lincoln was leading the baby naming contest on the park's website for all 6 babies.
Wow. All right, Kevin, you got a second one, right?
Yeah, I do have another one.
30 seconds.
Yeah, did President Obama do a press conference where he shook hands with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani?
Recently? Like
Ever.
I'd say yeah.
I seems probable.
They made that deal, right? I mean...
No, they did not. They have never met in person. That was a photoshopped image that was tweeted out by Congressman Paul Gozer. And he said, the world is a better place without these guys in power. But that was a fake image. It was a photoshopped image of Obama meeting with the Indian Prime Minister, I believe. And they photoshopped Rouhani's head on it. Fake news.
All right, guys, this is Radio Free New York. We'll catch you guys Monday.